for one of our speakers, please put it in the Q&A. I'm sure you see the Q&A at the bottom there. And so there will be time afterwards for those questions and answers to be given to our speakers. So that's where you put it. So right now, I'd like to turn the evening over to Gretchen Cox, who is our first VP Pro Tem and our conference chair. She will now introduce our speakers tonight. So thank you very much, Gretchen.
Thank you, President Janet. It's my pleasure to be here with you all tonight, and my distinct pleasure to introduce our candidate for U.S. Senate, Mr. Mark Meuser. Mark is a native Californian with a proven record of fighting for our constitutional rights. From a young age, Mark was an entrepreneur. At age 12, he picked cherries in the morning and then operated a street side cherry stand in the afternoon. By age 15, he was in management in the restaurant business, and by age 21, he had his own pizza restaurant. While his restaurant business was thriving, Mark started studying law. A few years later, he graduated with honors from Oak Brook College of Law. In 2017, he joined the Dillon Law Group, where he has focused on election, political, and constitutional law. Over the last year, he's been involved in 22 lawsuits brought against Mr. Newsom for his unconstitutional usurpation of power as a result of COVID-19. In his free time, Mark loves being outdoors, hiking, bike riding, sailing, scuba diving, or snow skiing. He enjoys the diversity the state has to offer. Let's all welcome candidate for U.S. Senate, Mark Meuser.
Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the last day of June. As you guys know, my name is Mark Meuser. I'm running for United States Senate, and we ended a 10-year streak of the Republican Party not having a candidate at the top of the ticket in the U.S. Senate race. So this was a big deal. There was a lot of talk among the talking heads in D.C. over the fact that here in California, we ended the 10-year streak of Democrats being in the top two for the U.S. Senate. Every time for the last 10 years, it's been a Democrat on Democrat race. And the Democrats tried to do it again this time. They had a multimillionaire who spent over $4 million of their own money on TV ads trying to make sure that it was a Democrat on Democrat race and that they would suppress the Republican vote. It did not work. And so this is a very good sign. It was one of the most important things to help ensure that we maximize Republican turnout in 2022, that we make sure that we are helping Kevin McCarthy with all of his targeted races on getting out the Republican vote. We all remember 4 years ago where we had a Democrat on the U.S. Senate race. It ended up being a bloodbath here in California, and we lost a lot of congressional seats. We needed to make sure that we had a Republican candidate for governor, Brian Dahle, and a U.S. Senate candidate, myself. And with that support, having a Republican in both of those races, it sets the table now for Kevin McCarthy to win a lot of seats this fall. And as I'm going to be sharing with you in a few minutes, some really good data that the red wave is not only going to help us pick up a lot of congressional seats, but help us win some statewide seats like the governorship and the U.S. Senate. I want to just start with some little data here that's going to be kind of fun for you. Look at Congressional District 13. That is a congressional district, the newly drawn lines, but 2 years ago, Joe Biden won that seat by 11 points. Now, this was an open congressional seat. There was, I think, 5 or 6 candidates in that race. And you know what happened? Republicans, when you add up all the Republican votes, compare them to all the Democrat votes, Republicans won that seat by 4 points. In one congressional seat, which is over a 50% Hispanic district, a majority Hispanic district, we saw a 15-point swing. That is a bigger swing than they saw in Texas with that congressional race that Republicans won for the first time in 40 years. That's how big of a red wave is coming to California. We are seeing numbers here in California that are bigger than what we see in Texas, or bigger than what we see around the nation. The Hispanic vote is real. We are seeing it in our data across the state that the Hispanics are leaving the Democrat Party, and they are realizing that their values are not being represented by the Democrat Party, and they are now coming to vote for Republicans. And it's going to be one of the many elements of the red wave that we are going to be seeing this November. Another element is the mama bears, the papa bears, parents with minor children living at home typically vote for the Democrat Party. They're about 75% likely to vote for Democrat. This year in 2022, we are seeing the polling data show that over 66% of them plan on voting Republican this fall. Because of record inflation, because of the soaring gas prices, the Democrat base is being suppressed. They don't want to come out to vote. Yes, the radicals are going to vote, but they were going to vote anyways. But the base, the people who are suffering with this $6.50, $7 gas, they're the ones, if they're a hardcore Democrat, they can't justify voting Democrats this year. So this is an excellent opportunity for Republicans to take back the state of California, because it is a time where we got Republicans getting excited at the same time Democrats are not excited. With the decline to states, they are a group of voters that, while they do split both directions, they tend to split heavier on Democrats. But the polling data is showing that they're more likely to vote Republican in this November election. Demographic after demographic after demographic. They are fleeing the Democrat Party. But here's the deal. We got to make sure our people get out to vote. If you go look at the election of 2018, the election of 2020, the election of 2021, one of the things that has become very obvious is there's about 4 to 5 million people in California who are conservative. They're registered to vote. They know it's their civic duty to vote, but they are staying home because they think their vote doesn't matter. And this year, when the Democrat base is suppressed, every Republican, every conservative that we get out to the polls to vote helps turn the table, helps us get more congressional candidates across the line, helps us get Brian Dowley for governor, helps get myself for U.S. Senate, and all the down ticket statewide races. It helps ensure that we have a red wave here in California. And the Republican women are one of the vital elements of the voter turnout. Now, as many of you know, I'm a constitutional and election law attorney. I work for Harmeet Dillon and the Dillon Law Group. And one of the things that I wanted to remind everybody here today is that the Republican National Party and the California Republican Party are working hard to ensure the integrity of the election. They are pouring probably not millions, but hundreds of thousands of dollars into the process to help us ensure, with strategic litigation, hiring a staff, training of volunteers, making sure that our election, that there is integrity in our election. And what a lot of people don't understand is back in the 80s, back when Ronald Reagan was president, there was a lawsuit in New Jersey that, as a part of the lawsuit, there was a consent decree that was signed that said that the Republican Party would not be involved in election integrity work. That consent decree ended a couple years ago. And since that decree is now no longer enforced by the federal courts, the Republican National Party has been beefing up its efforts of working on election integrity. It has been over 30 years that the Republican Party could not work on election integrity issues. And now they are allowed to do so, and they are doing so. So many of these nonprofit groups that had risen up, some of them, were groups that I'm associated with, the National Republican Lawyers Association. The National Republican Lawyers Association did a lot of election integrity work. That work is now being taken over, a lot of it, by the Republican National Committee, by the California Republican Committee. Stuff that we couldn't do for 30 years, we are now doing. And so rest assured that, the Republican Party is taking election integrity serious. I was on a phone call today with the National Committee woman, Harmeet Dillon. We were working with the RNC and the California Republican Party on strategic litigation here in California of what we have to do to help ensure that there is integrity in our elections. So one of the things to understand, the Republican Party is active and involved in election integrity like we have not been involved in decades. And this is an important development that is new. And a lot of Republican women aren't aware of what's going on here, and not just Republican women, the central committees. So this is a new project that's going on. And Leah will be talking after me, and she'll be introducing some of the things that the Republican Party is doing. And for those who want to be involved in this type of work, I strongly encourage you to get on board with the effort that the Republican Party is doing to build integrity into our election system here in the state of California, and work that we're doing around the nation. But here's the deal. It's not just enough that we have volunteers working on election integrity. As I mentioned earlier, we talked about the roughly 4 to 5 million conservatives who have given up, thinking in their head, their vote does not matter. I want to give a statistic that's probably going to shock a lot of you, but in 2021, during the recall of Gavin Newsom, we had identified over 4 million people that we thought were going to vote on election day to recall Gavin Newsom. Unfortunately, just a little over 1 million of them showed up to vote. Over 3 million people who we had identified as most likely going to vote yes to recall Gavin Newsom didn't even show up to vote. Gavin Newsom didn't win the recall. Republican Party, because we didn't get our neighbors to the polls to vote, because we didn't do that, we lost it. And this is a year where we can win. It's been over 30 years since we've had a United States senator that's represented the Republican Party. And I, for one, hope we end that this year. And I know everyone who's on this call wants to end the 30-year drought that it's been since we have had a voice in the United States Senate. But the only way that's going to happen is if we get our people to the polls to vote. And that means it's not enough to just get on your keyboard and get on Facebook or Twitter or Telegram or Truth Social and talk about how bad Democrats are. It's going to be critical that we go to our neighbors and we introduce them to our Republican candidates. And then we got to make sure that they vote. And here's the deal. Unfortunately, the California legislature has made ballot harvesting legal. I don't like it. But the fastest way to end ballot harvesting in the state of California is to elect Republicans into office. And the only way we're going to elect Republicans into office is if we get these conservatives to the polls to vote. John Wayne has a video that you can see on YouTube. And on that video, he is stepping off his boat in Orange County. And he's talking about his friend Ronnie and about how important it is for Republicans to elect his friend Ronnie. Now, let me tell you something. In that year, Democrats were 55% of the registered voters in the state of California. 55% of all voters in the state of California were Democrat. Just so you know, right now it's only 46. So Ronald Reagan was running for the governor of the state of California. 55% of the registered voters were Democrats. And what John Wayne said is that if we want to elect Ronald Reagan to become governor, we, the Republican Party, have to go out and knock the doors of our neighborhoods. And we have to introduce them to Ronnie. But that's not enough. On election day, we got to go back out and we got to make sure that our neighbors actually go to the polls to vote. So let me remind you that again. In 1966, when Ronald Reagan ran for governor, 55% of registered voters in California were Democrat. Today, in 2022, 46% of registered voters in California are Democrat. Ronald Reagan won in a landslide because the Republicans got their neighbors to go out and vote. And then Ronald Reagan was able to get the declined estates, the middle of the road people to also vote Republican. But the Republican Party made sure that their base got out and voted. And so every Republican woman, whether you live in Northern California or Southern California, I don't care if you are in Del Norte County or San Diego County. I don't care if you are in a small city or a big city. We need to make sure that our Republican headquarters are filled. And if you do not live close to a Republican Party headquarters, we have the ability to sign you up to a system where you can make phone calls from your home on behalf of Brian Daly and myself. But that's not enough. In addition, you need to go out and make sure that your neighbors understand how important it is to vote in this election. We all saw how important it was that Donald Trump won in 2016. Over the last 2 weeks, the Supreme Court has given us so many victories. I'm sure everyone on this call is tired of winning at the United States Supreme Court. I mean, you're probably all just going, enough, we can't handle any more constitutionally correct Supreme Court decisions. This is too much winning right now. I'm sure that's what everyone on this call is thinking right this second. But no, not. We all love what the Supreme Court is doing right now. And that is a testament of what happened because in 2016, we got our people out to vote in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania. These states weren't supposed to be won by Republicans. The Democrats were saying those states aren't in play, just like they're saying California is not in play. Here's the deal. We got to stop believing the liberal media. Too many of our friends, too many of our neighbors, too many of our family members think that this state is too far left, is gone. No, the problem is too many people believe that their vote doesn't matter, that they don't vote. The thing is, if we get the silent majority to come out and vote, Gavin Newsom will no longer be our governor and his dreams of being president of the United States will be dashed. Alex Padilla will no longer be able to try to push bills to defund the Border Patrol. We will have a an attorney general, who will actually put the bad guys in jail and will actually enforce our laws. This is an election where Republicans can win. But if you want to see a red wave in California, you're going to have to get out there and swim with a surfboard. Because we will not surf a red wave if we're sitting on our beach chairs with our sunglasses on, under our umbrellas, with our keyboard, chatting away and talking about how bad Biden is. we're going to have to get our friends, our neighbors, people who go to church with us. We have to make sure that they vote this year, which means we're going to have to become ballot harvesters. Now, just so you know, a ballot harvester paid by the Democrat Party is expected to collect 1,000 ballots. 1,000 ballots over the next 4 months. Well, over the last 30 days of the election, I should say. Each and every Republican woman in the state of California should make it their goal, at a minimum, to collect 10 ballots. Now, if they're a patriot, I expect them to do 50. And if they're a super mega patriot, I expect them to do 100 ballots. But if each and every one of us simply made sure that we got our neighbors, our family, and our friends to the polls to vote, just like John Wayne was asking people to do for Ronald Reagan. If we do that, then we are going to elect a Republican governor. We are going to elect a Republican attorney general. We're going to elect a Republican United States senator. That is a reality that is in our grasp. But the question becomes, are we going to step up and do something about it? I know some of us live in parts of the state where there are a Republican headquarters on every corner. Great. Make sure you get in there and volunteer. Some of us may live 100 miles from the closest Republican office that we can volunteer. Well, let's get on that phone system and let's start making fundraising calls. But it doesn't matter if you live next door to a Republican headquarters or if you live 100 miles away. Every one of us needs to make sure that our family, our friends, our neighbors get to the polls to vote. And that means that we need to go in and we need to collect their ballots and take it to the register of voters if that's what it's going to take in order to make sure that they vote. We're all going to vote. I'm not worried about a single person on this call, them voting. But what I am worried about is your friends at church, because we know that only 20-25% of the people at our churches are voting right now in California. I'm concerned about your neighbors who are big NRA fans. They all saw earlier this week what happened to them when the Attorney General released all their private information. We know that the state of California is attacking families, is attacking churches, attacking gun owners. It is calling evil good and good evil. The Republican Party, both the national and the state, they are fighting to make sure that we have integrity in our elections. They've got that taken care of. We need to make sure that we are volunteering for that part, but also that we are becoming active in the field to make sure that we get people to the polls to vote. Because it doesn't matter if we have 100% perfect election. If our friends and our family do not show up to the polls to vote, what good is it? We have to make sure that our neighbors get to the polls to vote. Don't let anybody tell you they don't vote because there's no integrity in the election process. We have people fighting for the integrity of the elections, and you're going to hear more about that in a few minutes. But what we have to do now is we have to also make sure that we get our people to the polls to vote. Because as an election law attorney who's been involved in these litigations, if I have the votes, it's a lot easier to hold on and win like we did in 2016. 2016, the Democrats came after Donald Trump. They tried to overturn the election results in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And I was out there fighting to make sure that they did not flip those votes. It's that we were able to fight and hold it. We need to be able to do that. But the only way we can do that is if we get the people to the polls to vote. And while Brian and myself are going to be out there working, doing our best, we need you to do what you can do, whether it's 10, 50, or 100 people. Make your list of your friends, your family, your neighbors, of who you are going to make sure gets to the polls to vote. And whether you text them, email them, phone call them, or drive to the doors, you're going to make sure that those people get to the polls to vote. And if we do that, we will change our cities, we will change our counties, and we will change the state of California forever. My name is Mark Meuser. I'm running for United States Senate, and I appreciate this time that I've had to share with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate that. Mark, can you hang with us for a while and answer questions after our next speaker? Does that work for you?
I have a pretty busy couple things I have to do. I prefer to answer questions right now if I can.
We can, that's fine, no problem. Just wanted to check. Okay, so we do have a few questions. Janet, do you want to take the first one, or do you want me to go ahead?
I have one of my own, and I don't.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to know what Mark feels about now us having, instead of an election day, we have an election month, we have an election season, and that doesn't help Republicans. How can we change that?
Elect Republicans.
That's simple.
We like what happened in Florida. We
Yes.
like what happened in Texas. They passed great common sense election integrity reforms. We need that. But the only way that happens is if we elect Republicans. And this is the year to do it. In a year where Democrat vote numbers are going to be down. I mean, there's a lot of Democrats that cannot stand voting for Democrats right now because the woke progressive policies of the left, they know that the Democrat Party no longer represents them. And while they may not be willing to vote Republican, they might not just show up to vote. And that's going to give us an opportunity. And we got to take advantage of this opportunity. This high gas prices, this high inflation, this high crime rate. This is one of those times where we got to go all in and get our neighbors to vote Republican. And when we win the governorship, when we win state Senate seats and assembly seats, what is going to end up happening is we will now have the people in the committees to pass good legislation for integrity. Yeah, California votes for a month and counts for a month. It is a laughing stock of the nation what is going on right now. But the only way we're going to fix it is by voting Republican.
Yes, yes, agreed. Thank you very much. Gretchen, if you wanted to take one from Q&A.
Sure, let me pull one up.
Nancy, we've got others.
Here's one. Some counties are eliminating places to vote, like Solana County, and I know here in Orange County, the same thing happened. Is there anything we can do to stop with the elimination of the polling places? Because if people have to travel too far, they won't want to vote.
Vote Republican. It's the same answer that I just gave. The thing is, these are laws passed by the Democrat legislature. And the only way we're going to change it is by electing Republicans to bring back common sense election integrity. You don't like it? Get your neighbors to go vote Republican.
Yes.
I have a question. I have a question. And Mark, this is more to your race specifically. What is your primary goal once you become a U.S. Senator?
I love that question. If you notice behind me, you see a lot of old books. A lot of those are about our founding fathers, not written by modern authors, written by their contemporaries. I love our American form of government that was given to us by our founding fathers. And I would like to return to that basic fundamental principle that as Americans, we have the right of self-governance. And that means we are not being told what to do by unelected bureaucrats who are depriving us of our ability to go to church, to run our businesses, to go to the beach, or to peaceably assemble at the state capitol building. This current administration has allowed the unelected bureaucrats to run amok, and we got to rein them in. We got to return solid constitutional principles that your legislature passes the laws, the executive enforces the laws. They don't get to make the laws. We have to balance our budget so that way we don't have runaway inflation. We need to make the United States energy independent. We have to protect our borders. It's not enough to just help Ukraine protect their borders, but we have to make sure that we protect our borders so that the drug traffickers and human traffickers are not making a fortune while destroying the well-being of all Americans.
I have a question here. What can the federal government do to help alleviate the seemingly permanent drought which exacerbates wildfire risks here in California? And how would you take action on that?
I love that question. One of the major problems here is that we are not doing forest management. We're not thinning out the trees. We're not cleaning out the underbrush. I could get really deep into the weeds on this issue, but the federal government, by not doing basic fundamental forest management, that has a direct correlation to the amount of water that gets into our streams and rivers. It also has to do with making sure that wildfires do not run rampant. So we need to go back in and, as Congress, we have the power of the purse. And so that means that we can legislate how the forest management spends their money. And we need to tell them, no, you do not have the option not to do forest management. We, the Congress, are telling you, you must do it. Here's the money for it. It is budgeted for this. And that is what needs to happen. So Congress has to take the lead on this. We can't allow the unelected bureaucrats in the Forest Service to dictate to us basic forest management. Part of that problem was also asked about, water. A lot of our dams are federal dams. So a lot of people don't understand that the allocation of water, a lot of that is done at the federal level. Unfortunately, the current administration has basically said whatever Gavin wants is what Gavin gets. And Congress has to rein that in and says, no, Congress, we paid for this water storage. Right. We're not going to allow California to just flush the water down into the bay. We need to practice sound water storage principles. And a lot of that can be dealt with at the federal level, but it's going to take Congress reining in the unelected bureaucracy that has been allowed to run amok, where they are making policy at the executive level that is contrary to the will of the people.
Mark, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. You gave us a lot of great statistics and information. We really appreciate that. We're all rooting for you. We're all out there working to get our first U.S. Senator, a Republican U.S. Senator, and in a long time elected. So best of luck to you, and thank you so much for being with us.
Everybody, thank you very much. I just want to remind everybody, my website is markmeuser.com, markmeuser.com. I am on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Truth Social. I am on Instagram. So I do encourage you guys to follow me and share the content that I put on social media. But also, if you are in a position, I would appreciate it if you can make a campaign contribution. Today is the last day of the quarter, so contributions today are very important. It helps us finish the quarter off really well. So if you're in a position, make sure you go to Mark Meuser tonight, make a campaign contribution. Over 60% of the contributions that I have received have come from people who have given less than $200. To help you understand how powerful of a number that is, of everybody running for United States Senate from the Republican side, I am ranked number 4 as the most grassroots candidate for U.S. Senate. And so I would like that number to go up. I'd like to end it. I'm very close to going into number 3. So anybody who can make contributions tonight, help me take that 3rd position on the table by helping me ensure that I'm a grassroots candidate bought and paid for by we the people. And make sure you tell your friends to make a contribution too. Thank you very much, everybody.
Can I
Thank you,
just
Mark.
mention
Let's
one
bump them
thing?
up, ladies.
Can I
Very
just mention
nice.
one thing for Mark? Mark, you forgot to mention that if you get in office, you're going to be the very first election integrity senator, which I think is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So give.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not only that is, as you guys know, my name was on the ballot twice.
Twice, yes.
I actually get elected on the 8th. Herschel Walker, he wins on November 8th. He doesn't take office till January 3rd. I win, I take office on November 9th,
Ooh.
which means I end the 50-50 Senate. I end the
Yes.
lame duck session.
That would be
There is
awesome.
so much
Fabulous.
riding on
On this.
this election.
Yes, there
So
is.
I guess one last thing I'm going to have to say, Republican women, you guys have been very generous to this campaign. 4 years ago when I ran for Secretary of State, many of you hosted events, part of my bike tour. I want to thank you guys for your support over the years. I don't think there's been a person out there who spoke to more Republican women's groups over the last 5 years than me. But if you guys want to help host a fundraiser for the campaign, we are setting up that schedule right now. So if your group wants to kind of put together something, go to my website, markmeuser.com, schedule Mark, and go ahead and put it in, and we'll get a hold of you, and we'll make sure that we get a fundraiser in your neighborhood. That's going to be one of the biggest things that's going to get me around the state, is that we get events around the state. You guys already know I've already been to all 58 counties. Over the next couple months, I'm pretty much only going to be traveling to fundraising events. So that's going to be most of my travel is going to be fundraising events. So I appreciate your support in the past, and I appreciate what you can do to help us get across the finish line.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you
Have
so
a great
Definitely
evening.
have our support. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Oh. Gretchen, did you want to introduce Lee?
Yes, I would be happy to. Lee Williams worked in the legal field for 7 years and has been a worship leader for 29 years, which I find hard to believe looking at her. She's not that old. During the 2016 general election, she was the 2016 Deputy Central California Field Director for the Donald Trump campaign. Lee is a duly elected caucus member with the Ventura County Republican Party for the city of Simi Valley. She has also served as social media manager for several campaigns at various levels. And she is a California GOP delegate, as well as an RWF member. And in 2019, she served as a first vice president. In 2020, Lee was hired as regional field director for the California Republican Party, where she helped in the successful effort to elect Congressman Mike Garcia, a victory that had not happened in over 22 years. She is currently the very first RNC election integrity state director for the state of California, the secretary for the Ventura County Republican Party, and a 2021-22 California Republican Party delegate. Her passion is grassroots involvement and teaching people how to get involved in their communities and be the change they want to see. Let's welcome Lee Williams.
Yay, well, I'm so happy to be here. I feel like I'm family with other Republican women. So first, I want to ask you all, how many organizations do you know in our country that have a national election integrity program? 5, 10, 20? Nope. 1. The RNC is the only national election integrity program. Having said that, I want to take a few minutes to talk to you about the RNC's election integrity program and why you haven't seen it before. I wrote it in here and Mark did address it, but I'm going to give you the full story, why you haven't seen us around. And he mentioned the consent decree, and you're going to be blown away. I hope you were blown away. When I teach this, people are mind boggled. They usually stop me and say, "Are you kidding me?" And when I went to the Election Integrity College with the RNC, I said, "Wait, stop. Are you kidding me?" And they said, "Yeah, everybody does that when we get to this portion." So you may not know this, but everyone, I want you to really listen what I'm about to tell you, and then you get really excited, and then I want you to scream it and tell everybody about this consent decree, because people still are unaware of this. So this is the consent decree from 1982 to 2018. The RNC was actually unable to effectively safeguard elections through election integrity operations. For almost 30 years, the Republican National Committee was legally barred. I know you're wondering what on earth and how did that happen and why. So let's tell you the details. So in 1981, during the gubernatorial election in New Jersey, there was a lawsuit that was brought against the Republican National Committee, the New Jersey Republican State Committee, and 3 individuals, accusing them of violating the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and also the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. Any guesses who brought the lawsuit? The lawsuit was brought by the DNC, the New Jersey Democratic State Committee, and 2 individuals, Virginia Peggins and Lynette Monroe. So to settle this lawsuit in 1982, while our beloved Ronald Reagan was president from 81 to 89, the RNC and the RSC entered into an agreement, and Mark mentioned the name of that agreement. That was called the consent decree. Now that consent decree was national in scope, and it limited the RNC's ability to engage or even assist in voter fraud prevention unless the RNC obtained the court's approval in advance. So I don't have the exact date for you, but somewhere around 2018, the judge on that original case passed away, and the RNC thought, this is our time. Let's get back into court and see if we can get this thing lifted. So in 2018, a federal judge lifted the restriction, ending the 1982 consent decree. Due to the DNC and the RNC consent decree, the RNC had been shut out of most election integrity efforts until, guess when? Now. The RNC has hired 16 election integrity state directors and also their legal counsel. And the exciting thing about this is included in that 16 directors and states, California is one of the 16. We're building the largest election integrity operation in history, and it is a fantastic time to be a part of the team. So I'm sure you want to know what we've been up to. So the RNC has invested, Mark said, well, it's probably a couple $100,000. No, the RNC has invested over $30 million in election integrity. Do you know any other organization out there that is able to do that? I don't. So the RNC engaged in roughly 58 lawsuits in the last cycle in 23 states, winning victories at the U.S. Supreme Court, federal appellate courts, and state Supreme Courts. Our productive losses are lawsuits challenging governors' executive orders imposing vote by mail in states like California and New Jersey, force the state legislatures to bail out their governors by passing narrower legislative changes. The lawsuits deterred other Democrat governors from bypassing their legislatures through executive orders, particularly in states where we control one or both houses of the state legislature. So we led efforts to completely shut out Democrat lawsuits in 8 states. Now, Mark Elias, who is the top Democrat litigator on voting issues, was largely unsuccessful in 2020. The RNC went 13-8-2 against him in court, with losses coming from relatively long shot offensive cases that we brought. We shut him out in key states like Florida, Iowa, Michigan, New Hampshire, Wisconsin, and Maine. I think that's a pretty great thing. So as you can see, we're vested, and we hope that we can count on you to be vested in this program by maybe taking a shift on election day. So having said all of that, I want to take a little time to just kind of talk with you. Let me share a quote by Plato. He says, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. And I think that's a pretty powerful statement, wouldn't you say? So here's my 2 minutes of extreme ownership. At times we look back and I think about all the things that we've gone through with these lockups. And I wonder, could it possibly have maybe breeded a little bit of complacency in us which I would kind of understand, because as a Republican woman, you're working cycle after cycle after cycle. And then in between cycles, you didn't stop then either, because you're still growing those clubs. You're still gaining volunteers and members and training people. So I understand that we get tired sometimes. In fact, I just came off of a little bit of a rest time before I took this. So I truly understand, but I do wonder, did it breed any complacency in us? And if we want to truly see something different within our state, we must, like Mark said, we must engage. We have to. We cannot point a finger at this organization or that organization and play that blame game. Instead, I don't like to play the blame game. That's not something that I put in my life. I turn inwardly and I think, did I do everything that I could to further our Republican cause? Did I do everything I could to help that candidate like Mark? Did I make calls? If I didn't like calls, did I at least force myself to make 50 calls a day? I mean, that's powerful, even though maybe you don't feel like that number is huge. That candidate does, because if we multiply all of us just making 50 calls, imagine collectively what that does for each of our campaigns. So, what else? So in 2016, I was also the Deputy Central California Field Director for the Trump campaign. And what I noticed during this time, and I shouted it from the mountaintops, is that the Republican women, as Mark said, were the entire backbone of the party. And I had just really come into politics in 2016. I saw somebody come down an elevator, and that's it. That was it for me. I jumped in having absolutely no knowledge of what I was doing. And that's where I met the wonderful Miss Nancy Wofford too, and began to learn and join the clubs and learn and grow and get involved in every single Republican known to man in my region. I went from, if you were in city council, if you were school board, mayor, I don't care who you are. If you're a Republican, I want to get you in office and I'm going to help you. And that's how really I started with my career. I didn't have a political background. I worked in family law of all things, but I worked so hard with Republicans that eventually my name floated to the Garcia campaign. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do this. And that was a very tough fight, but we won. So don't back off of the tough fights. Don't give in. So I just want to implore you, let's return as Republican women to those working clubs, where we're writing letters, sending letters to the editor, where we're making those phone calls, we're attending the phone banks, knocking on doors, attend your central committee, help those campaigns as much as possible. And let's be working clubs, not just social clubs, but working clubs. Imagine your social aspect of your club coupled with the working aspect of your club. I feel like the ladies are going to come running into our club, and the glory days of the Republican women are not behind us. They are in front of us because we have an opportunity in this election. I know the other side, they're dissatisfied. In fact, I don't really see a lot of advertising out there. I don't even really see signs for them out there. And so that kind of makes you wonder, let's run with fervency towards this election. And I want to know if I can count on you to take a shift for the elections. We do a lot of complaining about the elections. And I think I would also say, if we talk about the challenges that we have regarding election integrity, let's couple that or equal that with also the reasons why we should get to the polls. Because if you only talk about the challenges that we have ahead of us, you're going to get the agreement that you want. And you're going to hear that neighbor say, you're right, why bother? So let's inspire our women. Let's inspire our neighbors. Let's tell them, the facts about what Mark said about John Wayne and that percentage. And even though there were more Democrats, tell them that. They don't know that. You know that, but they have no clue of the wealth of knowledge that all of you on this call right now have. You are a huge treasure trove of information regarding the Republican cause, and don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid to invite somebody to a Republican women. Don't be afraid to volunteer. I've done everything, really almost terrified. I was like, you know what? I want to do this. Let's go. Leah, you can't talk yourself out of it. Go now. And in the end, I learned, I loved it, and I kept going. And so my dream is to see us become those working clubs again. Get back on those phones, get back on those doors, do literature drops, voter registrations. Let's be those working Republican clubs that we were, and let's show them the glory that's in front of us. And so I'm hoping that I can count on you all. It was very difficult in the primary to get commitments for our shifts to cover those polls. And I know every single person on here, that's like one of the #1 things is election integrity. Even in our local central committee, you know, sometimes I'll tell the chairman, no, let's not do an update for me right now, because the election integrity updates in central committee end up hijacking the entire meeting. So that tells me that it is one of the #1 things. So that being said, I need you to take a shift. I need you to watch a box. I'm coming up and developing a program where I'm hoping that the Republican women can adopt a box or adopt a polling center. So I'm working on that. I'm getting my digital assets together. So once I get all that stuff, I will submit it to you all. Maybe Nancy, that might be the easiest way, since we live in the same region, just to submit it over to you, and then you can disperse it, I guess, once I get that all rolling. We're also going to plan some events. I've discussed this with Mark, and so we're in the works of planning maybe San Diego, Orange County, maybe Central Coast, and up north of some events where, you know, Mark will speak. He might be able to get some other speakers. We might do a little bit of poll observer training so that when you leave that little event, you are ready to go. And we also want to do some fun stuff and inspire and bring back hope and inspiration to our voters, because I'm sure you're all aware that our turnout was a little lower than we'd like to see. And so let's inspire, let's get happy. You know, my former chairman used to say, we're happy warriors. We are happy warriors. So go ahead, get happy about this election. Start talking about how excited you are to be a part of this election, to be a part of election integrity, and making calls and doing all those things. And so I'll leave you with this. Let's not wave a white flag, not for a second. So when someone tells you, well, why are you bothering to vote? I don't want to vote. And usually I say to them, are you asking me to wave a white flag? I didn't even own one of those. I don't care if the universe is going to try to do something. I'm going to the polls because I don't own or wave white flags. I'm not a quitter. And I know everybody on this call is also not a quitter. So I look forward to you all signing up for a shift. If you don't have my email address, it's lwilliams@gop.com. Again, that's lwilliams@gop.com. If you'd like to be an election integrity team leader in your region, email me. If you want to take a training, or if, let's say, you and your neighbors, let's say like you did what Mark said, and you talked to the neighbors on each side and said, hey, let's do a Zoom training for poll observing. It's only about a half hour. You can ask questions and then you're ready to go. I will structure those trainings around you on the day and the time of your choosing. So we're making it easier for you here. So to overview a little bit of the program, we've asked our chairmen and our chairwomen here in the state in their central committees to appoint an election integrity officer. So far, I have 40 election integrity officers on the ground, building out their programs, training folks, shifting them. And we have roughly, because some counties are so large that we have more than one election integrity officer. So I have 50 election integrity officers, and we're starting now to reach out to some of the universities and see if we can appoint election integrity officers there. So we are definitely doing things. And then one more thing that I pitched to the state party, I said, hey, even though this is an election year, which might be crazy, let's do a clean up the voter rolls program. And so they said, sure, let's do it. So we have started the prototype. We've may alter it and tweak it a little bit. And so we've loaded about 20,000 duplicate registrations of Republicans and no party preference. We've broken them down into regions like North, Northwest, Central, Central Valley, Inland, South. And then our election integrity officers will call and they basically inform them that we noticed that you have duplicate registrations. Could we provide you with a voter registration registration cancellation form. And the reason why we're doing that is most people think, oh, well, I've moved away. I called the DMV. I made a call to the ROV. It should have been done. Nope. There's a procedure, and it's called a voter registration cancellation form. It's 1 page, and all you got to do is mail it to them. And so what our integrity officers are doing is, as they call through this, if the voter says, yeah, I'd like that form, then they'll click yes on the survey. And then the officer will say, would you mind providing me with a copy of what you sent to the register of voters? And they're going to begin compiling them. And after they're done, they are going to travel to their register of voters and provide them with a stack of those forms that should have been mailed to them or were mailed to them, and say, we'd like to know if these were done. And if they say no, we'll return, every month for 30 days, maybe for 6 months, establishing a pattern that we've done our due diligence, and then some letters or other things will go. So we're trying out that, we're tweaking it. Our integrity officers did pivot away the last couple of months because we are in an election cycle, and training and shifting is so important. So they might get back onto it during the summer, but we're still recruiting and training really hard. So it might be after the election, but we do have something in place that we're working on. And so Mark is right. Yes, we are doing things, and we do need all of you. So I am counting on you. And thank you so much for having me, and God bless.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Leah. We have just a couple of minutes left. So I think we have a couple of questions for you. Do you want, I'll go ahead and ask them. Is that okay, Janet?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, just
If there's time, I have my own. I always have my own.
Oh, well, then you know what? You go first. You go.
No, this is, anyway,
Okay.
real quickly, then you did mention that the turnout for the primaries was very low. What is your assessment of that?
Okay, so
Yeah.
2 weeks before the primary, the turnout was statewide 8%. And this went on for a couple weeks. And I thought, I don't know what to think. Okay, then they're all going to vote on election day, because everybody talks. There's so much chatter out there, like, don't vote this way, don't vote that way, do this, do that, scribble on this ballot, scribble on. There's so much information out there that we truly have to consider that we might be suppressing our own vote. So I think, I haven't looked in about a week. I thought we were around 30% turnout. So if I were to wonder what it was, I think some of it is voter suppression from us. When we say, this isn't working, and why bother?
Okay, I get it.
You're really seeing,
Yeah.
I've heard people who are phone banking, and they said, I've been phone banking, and a lot of voters are saying they're not going to vote, and I'm trying to talk them out of it. And then I had a local friend who said, for the first time ever, my brother and sister are not voting. And I asked them why, and I tried to talk them out of it, and they said, there's no point. So my thoughts are, when we're in-house like this with family, right, in our central committees and our Republican women groups, go ahead and talk about our challenges and the things that we want to do. But when we're openly talking about it to those that are maybe a little less informed, they're taking that in a different way than we are. They're taking that in a way of, what's the point? So I would love to see us get excited and equally talk about our challenges as much as we say, hey, this is the most exciting time in our life to vote. Their base is not happy. Do you see any of their signs anywhere? I don't see them.
Nope.
In fact, somebody mentioned that to me, and I drove around my county and went, I don't see any Democrat signs.
Nope.
I don't see any. And then that new number that came out this week, 1 million Democrats left the Democrat Party and registered Republican. Get excited about that and start talking about it. Post it on your social media. We have to get excited, because if we get down, those that don't have that wealth that you all have, they're going to follow you down it.
That's
Leah,
right.
That's my opinion. It's only opinion.
Well, thank you, Gretchen. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to take
No,
time.
that's okay. This is a question from Sherry Gillis. What are the election integrity officers doing?
So their number one task one is, let's say I shift you out of, let's say you're in, San Diego County. my San Diego County Election Integrity Officer. So once you get trained, either she'll train you or I'll train you. If I train you, I forward your information to her. And then all of my integrity officers are provided with what's called a shift tracker. And it has all of our addresses and then your name, phone number, email, and they plug you in so they can see exactly where we need the coverage. And so they shift you and they can train you, but they also, their number one job is to go to the Register of Voters once a month. They request procedures from them, they ask questions, and they get involved with learning the election process because there is so much to the election process. I mean, and the toughest part about it, I would say, is that it varies from county to county. I have my election integrity officers that we meet with once a month, and they'll say, well, my county does this. Well, my county does this. Well, my county does this. It's so different from county to county, but they go and ask questions, get the procedures so that our attorney can draft up one-page resources for our volunteers so they feel confident when they're serving, and developing a relationship and becoming a familiar face. And we feel like, gosh, wouldn't that be so much more successful than coming once every 2 years with an unknown face screaming at them? And so it has gone so well for many of these counties that San Benito County, my election integrity officer there, has built such a wonderful relationship with them about learning and finding out about the process that he came on with us for 1 hour and answered as many questions as my election integrity officers could give in 1 hour. So that's what they're also doing. So they're shifting, training, and then traveling to the Register of Voters and building relationships.
Oh, thank you so much for that information. Okay, I think that's about all the time we have for tonight. Leah, thank you so much for joining us. And I think President Janet had a comment or two she needed to make before we all sign off. So thank you,
I
Lee,
have
so much.
enjoyed
Thank you,
this
Lee.
hour. I've just got to tell you,
Most welcome.
So
Thank you, Lee.
enjoyed this hour with you and with Mark, and I've learned so much. I'm scribbling my notes, but I do want to let everybody know that we are having a board of directors meeting at Harris Ranch, July 16th and 17th. And everybody is invited. We've got some wonderful speakers. It's going to be great to be together. This is our first in-person board of directors meeting this year. And as you know, during COVID, it's been very hard to get together, but especially on an important election year like this one, I think we get energized by each other. And I am just very energized hearing both of you talk today and in hearing the questions. So I want to remind everyone that tomorrow is the last day to register for it. Harris Ranch is in Central California. It's in Coalinga, Kern County. Gretchen, do you want to tell them the speakers that we have? Or
Well, I will. We will have Congresswoman Shannon Grove. We will have, and we will have a Kern County District Attorney.
Cynthia.
Oh my gosh.
I have it in front of me.
Thank you. I don't have it in front of me right now. I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you, Cynthia Zimmer. Right. So we have Shannon Grove, Cynthia Zimmer, and Connie Conway.
Who took Devin Nunez's successfully.
Right.
So it has replaced, she's now his seat in Washington. We're so excited. So she's going to be speaking to us too. And if you want to hear some amazing violin music by Peter Kuo, he is our vice chair of the CAGOP. And it's just going to be a great time being together. So I think, is there going to be another call going out, Sherry, where they can sign up tomorrow?
Oh, yes, they have until tomorrow night at midnight to sign up. So
it's going to be a great time.
I don't know if they can hear me say that, but.
Well, we enjoy being together. We enjoy these events. And I thank you, Gretchen and Nancy and Sherry, for organizing this and for all of you attending, because it's given me a lot of hope for California in November. And that's what we need. This is what Lee was talking about. We've got to be enthused. We've got to be educated. And it couldn't be a more exciting time to be a Republican in California. We really are blessed to have this. So thank you all. And I look forward to seeing everybody at Harris Ranch. All right. Thank you so very much. We'll see you at the next Distinguished Speaker event.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you all for coming.